The year is 1964. In the vast, open plains of Central Europe, the world was divided by a single strip of barbed wire and fear, the Iron Curtain. On one side stood NATO, confidently relying on the brute strength of its M60 Pattons and Chieftains heavy, reliable, well-tested steel. On the other side, the Soviet Union fielded thousands of T-54s and T-55s, formidable in number, but technologically familiar. NATO felt secure. They knew the enemy. They had charted the Soviet doctrine, the logistics, and crucially, the capabilities of their main battle tanks. The tank disparity was manageable. Then, a ghost appeared. It didn't appear on a battlefield. It appeared in the classified intelligence reports, filtering back to the CIA and the Pentagon from the deepest reaches of the Soviet Union. The fragments were vague. The sources were unreliable, but the implications were terrifying. The report spoke of a new Soviet main battle tank, MBT, a machine so advanced, so radical, and so devastatingly powerful that it rendered every tank in the Western arsenal obsolete overnight. Its code name, unofficially known to the West by its suspected factory designation, was simply the T-64. This tank was not an upgrade. It was a technological leap, a machine built in absolute, suffocating secrecy, entirely outside the known Soviet defense doctrine, and hidden even from most Warsaw Pact allies. For the analysts in the West, this machine represented the most profound nightmare of the Cold War, the sudden, paralyzing realization that their opponent was not only keeping pace, but was now decades ahead in a key technology. The T-64 was the ultimate secret weapon, forged in silence, and its very existence was about to shatter the fragile strategic balance of the world. The story of the T-64 begins not with the Soviet Army, but with a singular genius, Alexander Morozov, the chief designer at the Malyshev factory in Kharkiv, present-day Ukraine. Morozov despised incremental upgrades. He believed the Soviet military needed a revolution, not an evolution. His vision was to create a tank that violated every existing rule of tank design. Maximum power, minimum weight. A tank with the firepower of a heavy tank, but the agility and small profile of a medium tank. Unbeatable. Armor. A defensive shell no current NATO anti-tank round could penetrate. No crew vulnerability. Eliminate the fourth crew member, the loader, to reduce the target profile and increase automation. The project began in 1951, running in absolute isolation, shielded from the Soviet Ministry of Defense and even the rival Design Bureau of Wagensid, who made the T-55 60 seconds. It was a secret project within a secret state. The resulting T-64 was a collection of revolutionary technologies that stunned Western intelligence when they finally learned of them. Composite armor. Unlike NATO's reliance on homogeneous steel, the T-64 utilized early laminate, or composite, armor layers of steel, aluminum, and ceramics bonded together. This revolutionary secret sauce could defeat NATO's best anti-tank rounds, turning the T-64 into a near-invulnerable moving bunker. The autoloader. To eliminate the loader, Morozov invented the carousel-style automatic loader. This allowed the tank to carry a heavier gun, the powerful 125mm smooth bore, with a crew of just 3. The engine problem. The tank was equipped with a compact, high-performance 5 TDF opposed piston engine. While revolutionary in concept, the engine was perpetually unreliable, a classic Cold War trade-off where performance was prioritized over reliability. The T-64, when complete, was a technological marvel. Light, fast, heavily protected, and packing a punch that could destroy NATO's heaviest tanks at ranges where NATO tanks couldn't even return fire. It was, quite literally, an armor division built for the future. The greatest defense of the T-64 was its absolute operational secrecy. The tank was deliberately not supplied to the Soviet Union's Warsaw Pact allies, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia. The Soviets feared these nations were too porous to Western intelligence. The T-64 was deployed only to elite Soviet tank divisions, stationed within the Soviet Union and along the deep border zones of the Group of Soviet Forces in Germany, GSFG. It was a weapon reserved for the moment of total war. For years, NATO intelligence had only fuzzy satellite photographs showing an unfamiliar, low-slung tank that was shorter and wider than the familiar T-55. The lack of a clear profile, combined with the absence of the vehicle from public parades and allied exercises, created a massive intelligence gap, the T-64 blind spot. The tension in NATO intelligence rooms was suffocating. They could sense the existence of a high-priority secret vehicle, but they had no hard data on its armor thickness, its fire control system, or the devastating potential of its new 125mm smoothbore cannon. It was like knowing your opponent has a knife, but not knowing if it's a dagger or a two-handed sword. The uncertainty was corrosive to our strategy. Quote, reconstructed from NATO intelligence briefings of the period, the fear was simple. If a war started, NATO commanders would send their best M60s, equipped with standard 105mm rifled guns, into battle against a tank that their existing rounds couldn't penetrate. This would be a catastrophic, one-sided slaughter in the Fulda Gap. Intelligence dam finally broke in the late 1960s. Through a combination of high-risk human intelligence, and specialized photographic reconnaissance, NATO finally obtained fragments of technical schematics and clear, detailed photographs. The results were electrifying. The composite armor specification was far more advanced than anything imagined in the West. Smoothbore 125mm gun, firing high-velocity APFSDS, armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds was a generational leap. The greatest shock was the autoloader. Western tank doctrine taught that a four-man crew was necessary for sustained, rapid combat. The T-64, with its three-man crew, meant a lower silhouette, a smaller target, and a tank that could be built lighter while maintaining lethality. The panic in the Pentagon. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Pentagon and the British Ministry of Defense. They realized that the T-64 was not just a better tank. It was a completely different strategic threat. The immediate consequences were devastating. Obsolescence. Every major NATO tanked the M60. The Leopard one, and the Chieftain was instantly deemed inadequate. Their 105mm and early 120mm guns were insufficient to reliably penetrate the T-64's composite armor. Strategic disadvantage. The established NATO plan of using superior training and technology to offset Soviet numerical superiority was now in the lid. The Soviets had both quantity and quality. The response was an unprecedented scramble of military R&D. The T-64 became the design bogey for the next generation of Western tanks. Everything had to change. Project XM1. The U.S. immediately accelerated the development of a new tank, leading directly to the M1 Abrams. The Abrams was conceived specifically to defeat the T-64 and its successors, incorporating new generation Chobham armor, a type of composite, and a powerful 120mm smoothbore gun. The Leopard 2. West Germany followed suit, developing the Leopard 2 with heavy composite armor and an emphasis on sheer mobility to counter the T-64's speed. The T-64, a tank that had never fired a single shot in anger against a NATO opponent, had already won the first round of the technological Cold War. It had forced the West into a costly, urgent, and existential arms race. Despite its technological brilliance, the T-64 was fundamentally flawed. The complex 5TDF engine, while compact, was notoriously unreliable, failing frequently in the field. The autoloader, though revolutionary, had a dark side. A serious design flaw meant that if the tank was hit and the internal carousel was breached, the entire ammunition store would explode instantly, frequently blowing the turret clean off the hull. This inherent unreliability contributed to the T-64's unique secrecy. The Soviets could not risk deploying their most advanced weapon widely until its problems were fixed. This flaw ironically helped maintain the illusion of the T-64's unstoppable perfection. As the West was unaware of the internal issues, the project eventually evolved into the T-72 and T-80 families, which adopted the T-64's core technologies, the 125mm gun and the autoloader, but simplified the overall design and engine for mass production. The enduring legacy. T-64 was never truly a mass-produced Soviet tank. It was a proof of concept, a technological manifesto. It was an intellectual success wrapped in a mechanical failure, but its legacy is undeniable. It redefined tank warfare. Its design tenets composite armor, autoloaders, and the 125mm smoothbore became the global standard. Adopted by nearly every major tank power. It dictated NATO spending. The T-64 was directly responsible for the massive investment required to develop the M1 Abrams and the Leopard 2, changing the trajectory of Western defense budgets for 50 years. Today, when we look at the sleek, powerful profile of an M1 Abrams, we are looking at a machine that was built not for a Soviet tank of the 1950s, but specifically to defeat the technological ghost that emerged from the shadows of Kharkov. The T-64. The tank that was never supposed to exist ultimately failed to fulfill its original goal of dominating the Central European battlefields. But it succeeded in an even more profound way. It won the technological espionage war, forcing its opponent to abandon its plans and rebuild its entire future defense from scratch. The T-64 remains a silent monument to the paralyzing fear caused by a sudden, secret technological leap, a reminder that the most terrifying threats are often the ones you cannot see and cannot stop.